Hi, fifth graders. Today we are going to be reviewing chapter 8. This can be found on page 523 in our textbooks. So, working with question number 1, this says a builder has an 8-acre plot divided into 1/4 acre home sites. How many 1/4 acre home sites are there? So we know that we are starting with 8 acres of land, and it says that each of those 8 acres needs to be divided into smaller sections, and they want those sections to be 1/4 acres. So now we know that our division problem is 8 divided by 1/4. We have to change this to the multiplication problem in order to solve, to figure out how many total sections there now are. So the first number always stays the same. Change it to a multiplication sign, and then our 1/4, we need to flip it or take its reciprocal. So when you flip it, that changes to a whole number 4. So 8 times 4 equals 32. So now I know that there will be 32 home sites. Again, I found that by dividing the entire land by 1/4 to make it into 1/4 size sections, and I have to multiply in order to figure out how many sections there are. For number 2, it says for A through E, select true or false for each equation. So for 2A, we have 3 divided by 1/4, and they say it equals 1/12. Well, we are going to change these all into our multiplication problems, flip the second number to make sure our answer matches the answer they have given. So for A, my first number stays the same, times, and I'm going to flip the 1/4. When I flip it, that changes into 4. And we know that 3 times 4 equals 12. They had the original answer as 1/12, so we find that this would be false because the final answer is 12. Now for 2B, we have 7 divided by 1/2. They say it equals 14. So I'm going to change this to the multiplication problem. 7 times, flip the second number, which changes it to a 2. And 7 times 2 does equal 14. So my work matches their answer, so this would be true. C, I have 1/5 divided by 4, and they say it equals 20. So when I change this to the multiplication problem, my first number stays the same, so I'm going to keep the 1/5, times, and then I have to flip the second number. If you recall, all whole numbers have a denominator of 1, so when I flip that, that now is giving me 1/4. And when I multiply top times top, I have 1. Bottom times bottom is 20. So the final answer is actually 1/20th. So they are incorrect. It is false. For D, 1/2 divided by 5, they say is 1/10. So when I change it to the multiplication problem, I have 1/2, keep the first number the same, times, and I'm going to flip the second number, so remember that 5 has a denominator of 1, so when I flip it, I now have 1/5. 1/2 times 1/5 equals 1/10. My answer matches their answer, so that is true. And finally for E, 1/7 divided by 3, they say it equals 21. So my first number stays the same when I change it to the multiplication problem, times, I'm going to flip the second number, and remember that has a denominator of 1, so when I flip it, I now have 1/3. And when I multiply, I have 1/21st for my final answer. And my answer does not match theirs, so that one is false. Moving on to question number 3. 12 pounds of beans are distributed equally into 8 bags to give out at the food bank. How many pounds of beans are in each bag? So I need to make sure I'm understanding what is being divided. And I see that it is the 12 pounds of beans that are going to be needing to be divided. So I have 12 listed first, divided by, and then I need to divide it equally into 8 bags. So divided by 8. Now, if you recall from 8.3, the first number of my division problem is my numerator. The second number to my division problem is my denominator. So I would have 12 eighths. Now I know that I cannot have an improper fraction for my final answer. So when I T-bow this, the 12 goes on the inside, the 8 is on the outside. 8 does go into 12 only one time. 8 times 1 is 8, and 12 minus 8 equals 4. So when I write that mixed number, I have 1 and 4 eighths. Now I know that that is still not in simplest form because I know that 4 and 8 are both even, which they can both be divided by 2. Or I do find a bigger number that they both have in common, and that is 4. So I'm going to simplify them both by 4. So my final answer is 1 and 1/2 pounds. Moving on to number 4. For number 4, Gabriel made 4 small meatloaves. He cut each meatloaf into fourths. How many 1/4 size pieces of meatloaf does Gabriel have? Draw lines in the model to find the answer. So back when we did lesson 8.2, we knew that the 4 rectangles were supposed to be representing the 4 meatloaves. And it does say that each meatloaf has to be cut into fourths, so we need to make sure we have 4 equal sections for all 4 rectangles. Now remember, I could count each individual section. Sorry about that. I can count each individual section to see how many 1/4 size pieces there are, or I can set up my division problem that we learned back in 8.2. If I have 4 meatloaves and I'm dividing them into 1/4 size pieces, I am changing that to a multiplication problem of 4 times flipping the second number, which would make it a 4, and that gives me 16 1/4 size pieces. So Gabriel has 16 1/4 size pieces of meatloaf. Moving on to question number 5. Number 5 says 5 friends share 3 bags of trail mix equally. What fraction of a bag of trail mix does each friend get? So again, back from 8.3, we need to make sure we are understanding what number is being divided into smaller groups. And what is being divided is my trail mix. And I know that there are 3 bags of trail mix. So that is the first number of my division problem. So that's the dividend. Divided by, and I see that 5 friends are sharing this. So 3 bags divided by 5 people. Now from 8.3, again, you've learned that the first number, the dividend, is your numerator. The second number, your divisor, is your denominator. So when you set that up as a fraction, you would have 3/5. And I do know that my 3/5 is simplest form. So that means each friend will get 3/5 of a bag. Moving on to page 524. Question number 6. Landon and Colin bought 1/2 pound of strawberries. They are sharing the strawberries equally. Each person will receive how much of the pound of strawberries? So again, back from 8.4, I need to make sure that I understand what number needs to be divided. And I know it's the strawberries that I need to divide between Landon and Colin. So I need to start with the 1/2 pound of strawberries. And I'm going to divide it between the number of people that are sharing this 1/2 pound, and that is 2, because I have Landon and Colin. So I have 1/2 divided by 2. Remember, the first number stays the same, times, and then flip the second number. Well, all whole numbers, remember, have a denominator of 1, so when I flip this, I now have 1/2. And I know that 1/2 times 1/2 does equal 1/4. So each boy will get 1/4 pound of strawberries. For question number 7, it says choose the numbers to create a story problem that represents 4 divided by 1/3. So when I create this story problem, I need to remember that I'm supposed to be dividing the 4, whatever it is that they want to divide, and I need to make it into 1/3 size sections. So when I read this, it says Bill bought, and then it's blank pounds of cheese. Well, I need to know the whole amount of cheese that he bought, and that would be 4 pounds of cheese. And because I'm dividing it by 1/3, we now have to use the next part. It says he made grilled cheese sandwiches and used, and this is where my 1/3 comes into play, 1/3 pound of cheese in each sandwich. And then it says that Bill made 12 sandwiches. Well, you can always double check to make sure you have the correct numbers listed in order. So we do have 4 pounds being divided into 1/3 pound sections. And if I check that answer, I would have 4 times 3 equals 12. So that is how I would need to select my answers. Now I am going to go ahead and cross off 8. And that takes us to the end of that page. So I'm going to move on to page 525 now. For question number 9, it says Camilla has a 1/2 pound of raisins that she will divide evenly into 5 bags. Shade the diagram to show the fractional part of a pound that will be in each bag. So when we go to talk about this, this is from lesson 8.4. where we know she's starting with 1/2 pound of raisins. Well, my entire rectangle right here represents 1 whole pound. So I just need to look at this section right here for my 1/2 pound of raisins. So I'm going to go ahead and erase this part because I'm not worried about that other 1/2 pound of raisins. Now, for that 1/2 pound, she divided it into 5 bags. So that's why we have 5 sections in that 1/2 pound. So she wants to know how the fractional part of a pound that will be in each bag. So when we talk about each bag, 1 bag is just this section right here. So that right there is my numerator of my fraction, which would be 1. And then the denominator, because it's how much of a entire pound, that 1 would then be over how many total sections the entire rectangle has. So if you count it up, you would see 10 total sections. So your answer is actually 1/10, and our picture model right here is showing that 1/10 of a pound. Oops. Again, you didn't have to have that final answer. It just helps to make sure that you know that your answer for shading was done correctly. Moving on to question number 10, I am going to cross this one off. That does take up the rest of page 525. So I am going to move on to 526 now. And for number 11, it does say we need to divide, and then it says to draw a number line to show your work. We are not going to worry about that number line. We are just going to divide and making sure that we are showing our work for our division. So I have 2 divided by 1/3. I have to change this to the multiplication problem. So I start with keeping the first number, the dividend the same, so the 2 stays the same, times, and then I'm going to flip the second number. So my 1/3, when I flip it, changes to a 3. And we know that 2 times 3 equals 6. Moving on to question number 12. Question number 12 says Zoe has 5 cucumbers she grew in her garden. She wants to share them equally among 4 of her neighbors. How many cucumbers will each neighbor receive? Use the numbers on the tiles to complete the number sentence. You may use a number more than once or not at all. So back in 8.3, we need to make sure we are understanding what number is being divided into smaller sections. And I know it's the cucumbers that I need to divide up, and there are 5 of them. So my first number is the 5. Then, to figure out how many groups I need to make, I need to see how many neighbors are getting these cucumbers. And there are only 4 neighbors that are getting cucumbers, so that means I'm dividing by 4. Back in 8.3, we knew that the first number was the numerator, so I'm going to write that in my numerator section. And then the second number, the divisor, is our denominator, so I'm going to write that in the denominator. I do have an improper fraction here that it does show that I need to change into a mixed number. So my top number 5 goes on the inside, the bottom number 4 goes on the outside. 4 times 1 gets me close to 5, and 5 minus 4 is 1. So when I write my mixed number, I have 1 and 1/4. Moving on, I'm going to cross off question number 13. Moving on to question number 14. This question is asking, Aiden has half quart of milk. If he pours the same amount of milk into 3 glasses, each glass will contain how much of a quart of milk? So I know that it's the milk that is being divided, and it's being divided into 3 glasses. So I know that half a quart of milk divided by 3 glasses. Changing this into my multiplication problem, the first number, the divisor, always stays the same, times, and when I flip the second number, that was 3 over 1, I now have 1/3 when I flip it. So 1/2 times 1/3 equals 1/6 quart. Question number 15, it says 9 friends share 3 pumpkin pies equally. What fraction of a pumpkin pie does each friend get? So again, from 8.3, we know that it is the pumpkin pies that need to be divided up. And I have 3 of those pumpkin pies, so that is my first number that I list as my divisor. Then I need to figure out how many people are sharing these 3 pies, and I see that there are 9 people sharing it. So my divisor is my numerator. My dividend is my denominator. 3/9 I know is not in simplest form. I know both 3 and 9 can be divided by 3. When I divide them both by 3, I have 1/3. So that means each friend will get 1/3 of a pumpkin pie. Moving on to page 527. Number 16 says Jesse is making a pitcher of fruit smoothies that contains 3 cups of orange juice. His measuring cup only holds 1/4 cup. How many times will Jesse need to fill the measuring cup to get the 3 cups of orange juice? So we had a homework question very similar to this, and this is going back to lesson 8.2, where we know that we essentially need 3 cups of orange juice. We only have a 1/4 cup measuring cup to measure these 3 cups, however, so we need to see how many times we fill this 1/4 cup up. So if I divide 3 cups into 1/4 cup servings, I will then be able to find the number of times my 1/4 cup would need to be used. So, changing to a multiplication problem, the first number stays the same, times, I'm going to flip or take the reciprocal of the second number. I've now changed the problem to 3 times 4, and that equals 12. So that means Jesse will need to fill the measuring cup 12 times to equal the 3 cups of orange juice. Moving on to question number 17, Kaylee has a 1/4 cup of oil. She pours the same amount into each of 2 oil lamps. Which equation represents the fraction of a cup of oil that is in each oil lamp? Mark all that apply. So what I want to do is I want to make sure I know what I'm dividing first. And I know it's the oil that needs to be divided between the two lamps. So I know I have to start with the 1/4 cup of oil divided by, and then I have two lamps that I'm splitting it between. So I'm going to divide it by the two oil lamps. So my original division problem is 1/4 divided by 2. And I see that that would give me choice E. Now because it is a mark all that apply, I also have to make sure I know what the multiplication problem is. So if I wanted to solve this, I know that my first number stays the same, so my 1/4 stays the 1/4, times, and then I have to flip the second number. Remember, my second number is 2/1 technically, so when I flip that, or take its reciprocal, I now have 1/2. So my first answer, choice E, was the 1/4 divided by 2. My second choice will be my 1/4 times 2, or times 1/2, I'm sorry, 1/4 times 1/2, and that is choice B. The other choices are not equal to either of those expressions, so therefore those are my two only expressions that I would use to solve. Moving down to number 18, it says Brendan made a loaf of bread. He gave equal portions of half of the loaf of bread to 6 friends. Which diagram could Brendan use to find the fraction of the loaf of bread that each friend received? Mark all that apply. So I know that for my picture, when I'm looking at my choices, I know that it's only half of a loaf of bread that he's dividing up. And he is dividing it between his 6 friends. So that's my division problem. And it might be helpful if you actually have the final answer when you go to look at the choices that are listed. So to solve for this, my first 1/2 stays the same, times, flip or take the reciprocal of 6/1, which is now 1/6, and that shows that I should have an answer of 1/12. So now I'm going to look at my choices. I see that A is not showing only 1/12 of the picture being shaded in. It's showing 3/6 being shaded in. So A is not one of my choices. B, if I count all the individual sections, I see I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I have a total of 12 sections. And I see that there's only one section shaded in, so my 1/12 that I have as my final answer is being modeled with B. Now for C, I see that I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So from that whole rectangle, I have 12 total sections. And again, only one of those sections was shaded in. So C is another one that is showing the 1/12. Now for D, notice we do have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 sections, but we are also showing half of each of them being shaded in. So that's actually showing that we are shading in 6 out of 12 sections. So that is not modeling my 1/12 that my final answer says that I need to have. Finally, we are going to move on to page 523. I am going to cross off question number 19. Moving on to question number 20. Question number 20 is the last question, and this question says, 7 friends picked 7 quarts of blueberries. 3 of the friends will share 4 quarts of blueberries equally, and the other 4 friends will share 3 quarts of blueberries equally. In which group does each friend get a greater amount of blueberries? Explain your reasoning. So, we know that there are a total of 7 quarts of blueberries being picked, and we know that 7 friends are sharing them. However, the first group, we see that there are 3 friends sharing 4 quarts of blueberries. Remember, it's the blueberries that are being divided, so I have to list the number of quarts of blueberries first. So I have 4 quarts of blueberries divided amongst 3 friends. So when I have this, remember, I have my 4 is my numerator. Over the 3 is my denominator. I do have an improper fraction, so if I TIBO, I have 4 divided by 3. 3 goes into 4 one time. When I subtract, I now have 1 1/3 quarts per person. That's when I have 3 friends sharing. Now, if I have the second group, 4 friends that are sharing 3 quarts of blueberries equally, I know it's the blueberries that are being divided, so I have 3 divided by, and it's 4 friends. The 3 this time is the numerator. The 4 this time is the denominator. So I have 3/4 quarts going to each group, or each person. So now, they want to know in which group does each friend get a greater amount of blueberries. Well, obviously, it is the group of 3 friends. We see that the group of 3 friends gets 1 1/3 quarts, and 1 1/3 is greater than our 3/4 quart. So that is it for the Chapter 8 review. If you had any questions over these problems, please don't hesitate to contact either one of us. Let us know if there is anything else we can help you with. Thanks.